Maximum News. Welcome back. I'm your host, Max Danger Darrett, your friendly neighborhood Simpsons kid.
And I'm Obsidian of the Triple S League.
And I totally forgot to put the Resident Evil trailer as a story for today. I'll just give my quick thoughts on Resident Evil. Welcome to Raccoon City. 3 words. 4 non-blondes. Yeah, that song didn't belong in that trailer. I will say, I will give it credit. The credit I will give it is that, yes, it does look more faithful to the actual games. Kudos where kudos is done in that regard. You know, some people have their beef about Leon. I don't really care, but I understand those that do. Aside from that, I'm not really huge on it. Like, the CGI kind of looks like it belongs in a sci-fi channel type movie with a lower budget. They got the character models right. Like, the liquor looks good, but even then, it just still looks weird. It gives you that weird uncanny valley feeling that you got when we saw the genie for the first time in that one Aladdin trailer.
Yeah, it was that uncanny valley. Man, that is a huge hurdle that they really need to either you need to move away from it entirely, or you have to absolutely nail it,
or just do practical effects. I know it's harder, but it will add to the overall horror. You can make the Thing from 1982, just even if it's something like that, I would still find that scarier than a CGI monster. But anyways, we'll see. Maybe it'll end up blowing our socks off. I really hope that it does. I hope that this is the Resident Evil movie that everybody wants it to be. But yeah, we'll see in a couple months. It's coming out in November, right? Yeah. I think. Yeah. All right. With that out of the way, let's get into the news that we actually had written down here. Saib, I'll let you take the lead on this. We have our usual Activision Blizzard update. What is going on with this company this week?
So this week, they were trying to delete all the records of the sexual harassment. Yeah.
No,
because they were just like, hey guys, all this evidence we've been cataloging for a long time, can we just delete it so that it's just gone? It's just put it under the carpet, maybe behind that one picture frame. Can we try and hide it under the, maybe behind one of the desks or something? And now they're like, hey, let's just delete them and get rid of them. So this is ridiculous. Again, this is what are you guys doing? Why is this such a constant reoccurring issue? And then in the last couple of days, it's been announced that they're removing even more stuff from the game now. So all of the flirting lines, all of the pickup lines that the characters have, some of our favorite flirt lines or silly lines, the jokes are not allowed anymore, and we don't know why. Some people are saying, well, this is okay if the jokes and the lines were created by the guys who did bad stuff. If they were the writers, then yeah, I could see why they're getting rid of them. But that's not what they're saying. They're just removing them. And some of them are fairly open too. It's not like it's a general, sexist thing or a targeted thing. It's there's a lot of lines that are just they're just jokes that literally anybody and everybody could like. Now, of course, there's some.
They're taking. Sorry to interrupt you, dude, but what? Can you give me an example of they've been taking it out of what? World of Warcraft?
Or... So this is World of Warcraft. This is the Warcraft team is removing any kind of even remotely. I wouldn't even say they're sexualized jokes. There's some of them that sort of are, or that kind of are. But there's the flirt lines are it's lines that you do and you slash flirt and the character says it and they say something that's both silly and or campy and or cringy, and it's meant to be they're meant, from what I understand, they were always meant to be bad pickup lines in the game, and the voice your character just says them, right? So there's an audio file with it, and they're removing them entirely. Almost every single one of them, they're just removing them and removing them from the game completely. And it's this thing where it's we don't want to have any kind of sexual nature in the game. And it's dude, that's...
Have you seen the way the night elves dance?
That's half... Well, I'm sure the dances are going to come next. I at this point, they came out and said, we're not making a nun expansion, guys, okay? They said that. But then they started removing more and more and more and more of this stuff, and I'm sure they'll continue to remove more and more and more of this stuff, because once they start down this road of heavy censorship, it's just going to steamroll, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. I think it's so arrogantly stupid of them to do that, because censorship, we just said this last week, censorship never works. It never has the intended effect. Once you start on it, especially when you put somebody in charge of it, they never stop, because the minute that they stop, they're out of a job. So they just keep on censoring, keep on finding things to go on about. And the worst thing that happens from this kind of mentality that you're building up within the company is that sooner or later that this usually propagates itself into some form of witch hunt or purity hunt or purity brigade, where it's like you're moving around, you're like, this isn't, we must chain this to a tree and burn it at the stake. And you're like, that's a little, extreme and
it's a little forced century.
Yeah, but this is how this stuff happens. Like you go back in history and you read like when things went bad and people started doing witch hunts and trials and stuff like that, it always just balloons and gets out of their control. And you always look back at it and you go, what were they doing? And this is where I'm afraid that they're going to run into with WoW and as a company or as a whole. I think this is, I think now, I wasn't going to say it. I wouldn't have said it last week or the week before, but I think now you can definitely say that Blizzard is gone and WoW will die, because once you start the purity brigades of marching around saying, well, this isn't pure enough and this isn't pure enough. I mean, you're dealing with like human beings. You will never get that level. You'll never get a level of purity that you're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, just because you're removing the emotes, and if you remove the dances, people are going to, use their own ways of going around that. They're just going to type their own lewd crap into the text boxes in World of Warcraft and just make the problem just as bad, if not even worse. And that is if you believe there actually is a problem. The
dumbest thing in this whole thing is that they've circled back now to where they were originally. In original vanilla, there were a couple guilds. There was about 3 or 4 of them that had a extremely adult sandwich making videos / like content creation based around prawns, if you know what I mean. Oh. And they were some of them were a little vocal, and some of them were like got kind of spied upon. Now I'm reaching into some of my own personal testimony here, and I can't talk about it in too heavy a detail, but if you Google stuff around WoW's release date, just after its release date, about particular guilds having such flavorful content or flavorful things that brought them together, there were some lawsuits that came out of that. Because what ended up happening is Blizzard ended up targeting some of these people who were wanting to express themselves within the confines of their own guild that they created and be quite liberal in their mentality, something which a lot of people cheer for these days. And what ended up happening is a bunch of the devs found out about some of these guilds and decided to troll and insult them nonstop. And back then, it was actually like, in comparison to today, it was fairly tame. In some cases, they were just mocking people because they were role-playing a different gender or whatever, and they went after them really hard. They left some nasty messages. They banned and suspended accounts. Sometimes they did it for 1,000 years, and like literal bans for 1,000 years. And then they mocked them internally. And I guess you can say this was the first time that you saw some of this control stuff happen, and it was targeted at what you would typically notify or quantify right now as the LGBT movement. And they were targeted hard. They were mocked, belittled, and ridiculed. And then they were kicked out of the game. Well, and then some of them sued, and Blizzard got into a lot of trouble. And this was kept under wraps. And again, you can find, if you Google, because I can't talk about some of these things, you can Google it and find out. There's a couple of stories that are floating around out there. Since then, Blizzard and other online games have had a kind of like, as long as you don't put it in public chat, we don't care kind of mentality. And so there's been this kind of like veil there. But now we're back to this like, people creeping on people, players, like, are you not being pure enough? Are you having role play sessions that we do not agree with? Then you're out to the curb. And so there's this more of this behavior starting to show up, and it's so sad and funny at the same time. Not funny like haha funny, but like bizarre, like scratch your head
Peculiar,
funny,
yeah.
in the sense that, like, you know, something doesn't smell right, fishy funny, that kind of funny. And you sit back and you go, wow. They circled back to their original starting position, which was mock anybody that's different than us or that is expressive about this kind of content. Remove that content from the game. Like, they didn't do it back then, but they started to, like, there were things that the company did back then that was kind of messed up. But yeah. So continued messed up, all because a bunch of people can't control themselves, and now there's apparently a bunch of people who either can't take a joke or don't understand comedy, because some of these lines they're just jokes, right? They're meant to be funny. They're not meant to be taken seriously, and they're like, no, we're removing them because they offend us. It's like, ugh, okay. Yeah. The offense police have arrived.
Why is it so difficult for companies to just listen to their audience and give them what they're asking for? Well, and we're going to talk about that again in another story coming up. Sorry, what were you about to say?
I'm like, well, how hard is it for people to just develop like decent fences and then to just let people play? Because this is a game in which people bring their avatars to life, right? And there's a lot of those people who use it as an escape. And the other thing is that these people are people, and the characters reflect that. And that's why typically online games usually have like a higher rating, is because you don't know what you're getting. The experience is different. Of course, there's boundaries and things that you want to establish. But if you're wanting to like shun sexuality in every way, shape, or form, MMOs are not the thing to do that in, because people are sexual and they are going to, you know, in a world where they play as themselves or they play as a persona or an avatar of themselves, that's going to have some kind of an effect there. And if you start on it, you're going to end up where China is right now, by saying, you know, here's a long list of rules, and if you do anything even close to this, you're out, you're destroyed. It's like, I see that coming in this case, and I don't think it's good. And I think they've crossed the echelon now. I really believe it. I think today is the day that we know that Blizzard and Warcraft is going to die, because they have decided to roll out the purity police.
You hit the nail on the head, dude. See, one thing about World of Warcraft that made it what it was, one of the greatest games ever made back in the day, was that there was this organic desire for everybody that played the game to sort of live out their fantasies, to actually exist within this other world, being the person that they can't be in real life, you know, obviously while maintaining some level of decency and all that. But once you start putting these purity tests, as you say, on these people where they can't act out the way that they want to act out among other people, while obviously respecting the rules, then you start disincentivizing people to want to engage with that unique experience, because it just becomes like, well, everything else nowadays, which is, you know, getting censored and being purified. And then it's like they'll just go to the next vestige that allows them to do that. Right now we have Final Fantasy 14 and New Worlds, but how long is it going to exist there?
You know, I'm reminded of a line from Doctor Who's Peter Capaldi's era, from one of the great episodes there, where he just says he's arguing with two factions that are fighting, and he says, you know, you're going to keep fighting until you're forced to do what you should have done right from the beginning, which was sit down and talk about it. It's like, sit down and talk these things through. You can't have a perfect system. There is no such thing as perfection in this world. I hate to break it to you, but there's really not. And you just can't get anything to that level. And wanting or trying to force it, the harder you force it, the more it's going to backfire on you. And I think that's what this is. I don't think that these jokes, a lot of them which were really just campy and silly, I don't see how removing them improves the game, and I see definitely how removing them is going to make the game, the designers, and everybody involved in this process a lot worse. In every way, shape, and form.
Yeah. Hopefully they will have sort of a change of heart. I sort of agree with you. I think what's inevitably going to happen is our World of Warcraft is going to die. But in an ideal world, they would be able to sit down with the people that are longtime fans of the game, figure out how to bring it back to where it was in the glory days by, you know, removing all the pay-to-win stuff that currently is there and revivify it. But yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Before we move on to the next topic, I just want to give a couple of other brief bullet notes in regards to Activision Blizzard. In regards to what you were saying before about them destroying evidence, we kind of already knew this, but what's actually happening is the people that originally filed the complaint against Activision Blizzard, the DFEH and the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, they're trying to file a motion that enables them to sort of, because it's looking like Activision Blizzard and the DFEH are going to settle. But before they do that, they want to make sure that they remove this clause that allows Activision Blizzard the ability to remove any allegations of sexual harassment from the personnel files of settlement claimants. And whether or not they'll be able to do that, well, it's looking like they're trying to file a motion to get this done quickly so that, the lawsuit can keep going on and seeing if there's any final evidence that they need to go over before they actually seek out the settlement. So hopefully something will come out of that. Hopefully not everything has been destroyed. It's kind of hard to completely destroy digital evidence, especially nowadays with the way the internet works, but we'll see. And then finally, Diablo 4. Still don't know when that's coming out. Probably not for another few years because they're probably going to push Diablo Immortal pretty hard in 2022. But they do have a new director. The previous director, Luis Barriga, left in August after all the allegations came out against Activision Blizzard. We don't know if he was directly or indirectly involved. It's just as possible that he just didn't want to put up with the drama and then he left because of that. But we do have a new director. Jo Sheely is her name. She worked on both World of Warcraft and Diablo 3. And there's no reason to suspect that she isn't an appropriate replacement. So hopefully things turn out okay in that regard. Yeah, and still no concrete release date for Diablo 4. That's about all the news that we have left. Did you have anything you wanted to say to that before we move on to GTA?
I'm pretty sure Joe is a he, not a she.
Well, the article that I read referred to her as a she.
That's weird. IGN has them listed as a he.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't mean to cause any offense, Joe. If you're listening,
we're not trying to cause offense. We're just confused by this article. That's all.
Yeah. It's not like I saw a picture of you and then I made an assumption. No, I read it on IGN and the pronoun there was she.
Somebody has made a boo boo in using copy editors. So
that, or they were trying to insult you.
No, not trying to insult you. Just noting that. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
All right. Well, yep, that's all there is for that. We'll obviously keep you guys updated. We want to keep this story going. We don't want it to just sort of fall away in the news cycle, how news stories quickly get forgotten nowadays. Let's move on to another piece of news. We did a story on this a few weeks ago. We talked about it on Maximum News, that there were rumors that the original GTA trilogy, Grand Theft Auto, was going to get remastered. Obviously, the trilogy referred to is GTA 3, GTA Vice City, GTA San Andreas. There were a lot of supposed leaks that were coming out about it, but nothing had been officially confirmed until today. On October 8th, that is Friday, 2021, Rockstar, on their Twitter feed, they released a little video, only 25 seconds, just saying, hey, these 3 games, they are getting remastered, and they are apparently coming before the end of the year, and they'll be released on pretty much all the systems. Android and iOS will be getting releases too, but those won't be coming until the new year. Unfortunately, we still don't have any look at the gameplay, which some people might be like, oh, isn't that kind of worrying? Maybe it looks like crap and they know it looks like crap, so they're holding it back. No. Keep in mind, to those of you, who remember back when GTA 5 was coming out, Rockstar didn't release any gameplay for that game until I think it was roughly 2 months before that game came out. And, to this day, it's still one of the most played games ever. People still consider it one of the greatest games ever, if you don't consider all the predatory monetization stuff. So maybe there's nothing to worry about here. Maybe there is. We'll just have to wait and see. Side. We already know how you feel about Take-Two. Are you worried about the way that these games are going to be looking?
Not really. I mean, my care for Take-Two, I think it's a shame. I think their games are great. I think a lot of the devs that work on those games work very, very hard at making those great games. Yeah. But their lawyer department and their upper echelon level employees there, I think those people are very cruel and do not like to play in a happy manner in the slightest. In a kind manner. Sorry, not happy. In a kind manner. They do not play kind. They do not play kind, I would say. Just personal opinion. Again, It's not like they've taken down several YouTubers in the past very aggressively with 100+ takedowns of original content that fits within fair use. You know, none of that.
Yeah, going after them as if they murdered somebody. Yeah, in regards to whether or not these games will be worth getting, obviously that will it depends on what the trailers show us. It'll all depend on whether or not, well, could I buy these versions, or could I just buy the original versions on the PC and then mod the crap out of them and make them look even better? That's what's ultimately going to make me decide whether or not to get the games. I hope, though, because Rockstar's games, aside from the monetization crap, they tend to be state-of-the-art. And I hope they'll put that amount of effort into the Remastered Trilogy. Hopefully we'll see footage within the next month. All right, now speaking of other crappy companies and their crappy policies, Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics side. I don't know if you knew this, but they're liars. Not only are they liars, they're liar, liar, pants for hires something. I think that's the joke from SpongeBob. Yeah, remember Marvel's Avengers, how that came out and everybody was like, oh, it's really mediocre. And they also said, the developers of that game before it released, that, oh, we're not going to put paid XP boosts into the game, and we're not going to put loot boxes into the game ever. It's all only going to be for cosmetics that you have to pay money. Well, the game just came out on Xbox Game Pass. And what do you know? They put in the XP boosts that they said weren't going to be there.
Oh, sure. I am so... My shock and surprise knows no bounds right now. I swear that I never saw or assumed that this would ever be coming, ever. History of mankind. We must alert all the press. Yes, all the presses must be stopped. And no, we're not surprised at this at all. This is... We always...
And if you are surprised,
we always knew this would
we feel sorry for you.
And it's disgusting and vile, and this kind of thing, and it's such a shame. It's such a shame because they could have done so good with this product and with the other products under their belt.
Yeah.
They could be doing so much more. One of the first games I fell in love with was a Capcom game, and Square Enix. The level of disgust that I have for this kind of move, and again, it's hard to keep these companies track. Ubisoft has done it, you know, EA has done it, Square Enix, I think they've done it in the past before too. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and you can't keep track of it anymore. It's just, hey, let's lie to you, give you a broken thing, and then make you feel like, you know, oh, well, you should get it. Other, you know, fear of missing out, you know, roll, spend, try and get this, try and get that. It's like they don't have any gumption anymore. They've forgotten what that means. They've forgotten what, you know, integrity means.
Well, and I don't think they've forgotten it. It's just that they're not incentivized to remember it. Because companies keep doing this. Square Enix keeps doing this because people will buy them. The people that have the money to spend and have nothing better to do but just play games and spend tons and tons of money on them, they're the ones that keep people like Square Enix in business. And they'll keep doing this because even though the vast majority of people will complain about it, they'll still make their money back. You know, what else is ironic? Back in March, Crystal Dynamics said that they were going to reduce the rate of XP gain in this game because, and I'm reading this from the article right now as we're talking, it says it led to pacing issues such as skill points being rewarded too fast, which may be confusing and overwhelming to newer players. Well, apparently it's not an issue anymore as long as you're willing to pay them money to do it. Right?
And again, it's so sad. It's so sad. It's like, what happened to making a good product and then just like doing meaningful stuff to bump sales?
Well, there are tons of great superhero games that you can play. It's just that people don't seem to want to let go of this particular game or any other particular game for some reason. It's like, oh, but I want to play a soccer game and FIFA's all I have. Yeah, but there are so many other games that you can play. You can watch soccer on the television. You can just, I mean, it'll be slightly unpleasant for maybe 1 or 2 days when you're not playing it. Same for Marvel's Avengers. You might not be able to have a game where you can play as all the Avengers, but you can play Spider-Man on the PS4. You can play any of the Marvel vs. Capcom games. You can play some of the old superhero games. Some of them are wonderful, like the old Wolverine game or the old Incredible Hulk game. And you can watch obviously all the wonderful movies in the MCU, right? In order to be able to stop them from doing this and to sort of incentivize them to make a better Marvel's Avengers game in the future, you got to stop supporting this game as it is right now. Just go play something else. But people don't seem to want to do that. So it's a vicious cycle. It's the snake eating its own tail. And yeah, unfortunately, if you happen to be somebody that played this game, I'm sorry, but I don't know what to tell you. You should have seen the writing on the wall long ago. Wow, we've sort of blown past all the stories pretty quickly. We still have one more though. Aside, you and your love affair with Doki Doki Literature Club. What did you want to talk about this week in regards to that?
I don't love it that much. I think it's brilliant. I think the guy who made it is brilliant, and I think he's got a bright future ahead of him if he continues to make games that are this this fascinating.
Kooky.
I don't know if I can call it good or not. It's not something that I enjoyed playing. I was very creeped out by it. I do give the warning: if you have depression, do not play. If you have depression or anxiety or anything that's within those wheelhouses, do not play this game. However, the emphasis on how good this game was. First of all, it was free when he put it out. He put it out free. Here, Square Enix, if you're listening, this is how you do a game release. They put it out. He put it out for free. It became a massive success, an absolutely massive success. It was a streamer's highlight game for like a full year. People still play it, and people still line up to watch people play this because it's such a fascinating, interesting, lovable, bizarre, and again very odd and strange experience, horror to the maximum. But he came out with physical copies of the DLC that he put to it, where it expanded a lot of stuff, gave a lot of extra content, tons more story and writing and stuff like that. They did physical copies, and they sold 500,000 in a day. So yeah,
in a day?
Yeah, at least from what I was reading. So I gotta say that I am impressed, and this is how you make a good game. This is how you introduce a new concept for all these big studios. If you're introducing a new game, a new IP, if you want to make it move numbers, give it away for free, or at least give like a good chunk of it away for free, and then add to it after the fact. I honestly, and I'm really saying this to Bethesda right now. Bethesda, I would give away Starfield to anybody who owns 76 and Skyrim. Like just off.
Yeah.
Just give it away for free. Give it away to anybody who bought 76 for free as an apology. And I honestly think that they'll probably end up selling every single DLC that they put out for the and every time they resell it, right? They're gonna resell it for the next decade, right? So I'm pretty sure that for the most part, if they put a long-term team of a couple hundred people pumping out DLC and integrating player mods and this kind of stuff, if they do that for the next decade, they'll have a constant revenue stream, and everybody will be really happy with them. So that's how you do it. I think, honestly, that's how you do it. But no, seriously. Now we brought this up, of course, because it's October, kicking off Halloween. There's some really cool spooky games that are going to be coming out, and I have to say that I have played Fear. I have played, the scariest games out there. The Outlast. I watched somebody play it, maybe motion sickness like crazy. There's a lot of horror games out there, but nothing makes my skin crawl quite like hearing Monica, just asking if I want to sit and write some stories with her for a little bit. Yeah. Still have nightmares about that.
Oh God! Now you just made me curious. Like you say, you didn't enjoy it, but do you sort of enjoy it as an art?
Sorry.
Like
yeah,
a piece of art?
I should specify. I think it is. Yeah. I think it is a stand-up game. I think it is probably one of the best horror games ever made. Period, hands down. I believe that it is a fairly good masterpiece. I myself do not like horror games in the slightest. I find them campy, ridiculous, and oftentimes they don't understand, nor do they have any concrete lore in any way, shape, or form, and that drives me absolutely mental. I despise inconsistent lore. And if you've ever watched a Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th movie, it's like like the levels of stupidity. I don't enjoy that content. I think it's fine that other people do, and I'm not insulting you for enjoying, you as the listener. I'm not insulting anybody's choice in that kind of stuff, because I know that they can divulge, they can cut that logic process out of their out of critiquing the film constantly, and they can actually become engrossed and entertained by it. I am not capable of that, so that's not a bash on you guys. That's a me thing. Yeah, it's a personal thing. Yeah. I cannot disconnect logic when I'm watching movies or films or anything like that. I'm always sitting there going, no, that really doesn't work, because the tensile strength of that rope is just, that's not going to hold that for, there's no way that they could pull that person up with that tensile strength of that rope. That rope's like geared for like 50 pounds tops, and they just pulled a 120-pound person up with it. That would have snapped like 5 times that way. I cannot disassociate those things from the movie and have a good time. So, and that affects a lot of movies. I'm not a huge movie buff, and because it's like the logical inconsistency drives me absolutely mental.
Hey man, I'm a Silent Hill fan, and I like to pretend that no game after Silent Hill Origins exists for this exact reason. Yeah. What was I about to say? Yeah, and I also, in regards to the logical consistency thing, I recently watched A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place 2 with a friend of my girlfriend. And if my girlfriend's listening to this, she knows who I'm talking about. The entire time we were watching both those movies, she was just pointing out the logical inconsistencies. Thankfully, I was able to be like, yeah, you're right, and it's kind of hilarious. But I can understand in other circumstances it can be quite annoying and ruin your experience. Yeah. Maybe I should, I do have anxiety, but based on the way that you've described Doki Doki, I should probably check that one out. You should,
if you're going to play it, you should probably stream it. It's designed to be played by a streamer who has a large group of fans watching them in live time. And again, there's some scenes, so you have to you have to kind of, you have to get ready for some censoring. There's some shocking imagery that shows up in there. And again, that I'm not super huge into that kind of stuff. So, that's something that you play, you kind of see, and you're like, oh my God, this is crazy. But it's the brillianceness of it. But again, it's highly recommended on there. It's like, if you have, if you struggle with any, anxiety, depression, suicide, that says, do not play the game at all. Do not play the game. Avoid it as best you can. Read or watch some article or some videos that kind of like synopsisize it. That's what I would suggest for anybody who's really curious into that. Or to watch. There's a couple of really good videos where they kind of like compile everything, and they keep all the surprises secret until the end. So yeah, I would recommend doing that if you're interested in it. But yeah, here's to the best horror game that the PC has put out in the last 10 years, easily.
Okay, maybe I should based on the way you described it and how its relation to mental health topics, I should probably put it on my list of games to
if you're into Silent Hill, you'll get a kick out of this for sure. But just make sure that you're very mentally healthy while you're playing it.
I'll take some happy pills. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Maximum News Show. That was all the stories that we had for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want an audio version of this podcast, you can get it very easily by going to the link in the description box, which takes you to my Patreon page. Don't worry, it doesn't cost a lot. It costs less than $1 American to get an audio version of this on your iPod, on your Android, iPad, whatever you use to listen to your podcasts. And it helps support not only myself and Simon, the show, but also the Disability Channel, which is kind enough to host the show of ours. I want to thank Saib, as always, for his lovely insight and his impassioned views. Saib, do you want to tell people where they can find you online?
Find us at the Triple S League at Rumble, YouTube, basically anywhere and anywhere. We've got videos going up all over the place. We stream on Saturdays and Tuesdays, doing kind of like a news/entertainment show. So check that out. Again, you can find us on multiple channels on YouTube doing that, on Twitch, and then on Twitter, of course. And Mooney is going to be playing or is going to be dressing up for the whole month of October leading up to Halloween, and she's going to be playing some pretty cool spooky games. And I think we might be giving a go at the game called, and I have to make sure I get this right, Age of Darkness Final Stand. It's kind of like one of those like city management zombie survival game type things. So looking at that, looking at some of these other games, we did some Wilder a couple weeks ago, did some New World, just looking to have fun. So join us on a Saturday morning.
Is she like does she get scared easily?
She likes playing horror games, and I don't know if she gets scared easily. I don't know. It's kind of it's a tricky question.
Okay, I'll just have to tune in and see, whenever she's playing these games. By the way, I'll have some October Halloween themed content coming out over the next few weeks. Expect something on Outlast. Expect something. Actually, you know what? I don't want to spoil the surprise. Sorry, what?
I was doing the skeleton song. Spooky.
Oh, okay.
Skeleton song. I don't want to do it too much because then you get flagged.
We'll get copyrighted. Yeah. I would start singing Thriller, and I know how badly you guys want to hear me sing that, but yeah, copyright. That does it for us, guys. To all the Canadians, have a happy long weekend. Have a happy Thanksgiving. And until we do this again next week, just want to remind you, as always and as per usual, y'all stay yellow.